For centuries, the Amish have quietly mastered a system of gardening that produces astonishing harvests without chemicals, without machines, and without dependence on fragile supply chains. Meanwhile, in 2026, grocery prices climb higher each season, shelves set half-stocked, and families wonder how to stay secure. The contrast is striking. One community thrives in abundance, while the rest of us grow more dependent on a system that feels increasingly unstable. What is their blueprint? How does it still work today? And most importantly, could it free your own backyard from modern vulnerability? Step back with me to the year 1934. The Great Depression still lingers like a heavy fog across America. Factories have closed, jobs have vanished, and families scrape together meals from whatever they can find. In the countryside, the soil itself becomes both enemy and ally. Dust storms sweep across the Midwest, choking fields, while small towns watch their savings evaporate. Yet in Amish communities, tucked away in Pennsylvania and Ohio, life follows a different rhythm. Picture a crisp autumn morning. The sun rises over rolling hills, its light spilling across neat rows of vegetables. The soil is dark, rich, and carefully tended. An Amish father, his long beard flecked with dew, bends to inspect a row of cabbages. His children, barefoot and laughing, carry buckets of water from a hand-drawn well. A mother kneels in the garden, her hands stained with earth, planting garlic cloves that will sleep through winter and awaken in spring. There are no tractors here, no roaring machines, just horse-drawn plows, wooden tools, and hands hardened by daily labor. The air smells of compost and cut hay. Chickens scratch at the edges of the garden, pecking at grubs, while a horse snorts softly in the barn nearby. Every detail feels intentional, every action part of a larger design. Now imagine the contrast. In nearby towns, families line up at soup kitchens, rationing bread and beans. Grocery shelves stand half empty, prices rising beyond reach. Dependence on distant supply chains leaves them vulnerable. But the Amish, through discipline and tradition, continue to feed themselves abundantly. Their gardens are not hobbies, they are lifelines. Fast forward to 1944. World War II rages overseas, and America faces rationing once again. Sugar, meat, and canned goods are scarce. Families in cities struggle, but Amish households remain steady. Their gardens, already perfected through generations, yield enough to fill cellars and pantries. Rows of potatoes are stored in cool earthen pits. Jars of tomatoes line wooden shelves, and beans dry in bundles hung from rafters. The scene is cinematic. Lantern light flickers across a kitchen where jars gleam like jewels. Outside, frost settles on the fields, but inside, families eat confidently, knowing their food supply is secure. Children grow strong on meals their parents grew themselves. Neighbors trade seeds and share wisdom, reinforcing a community bound by resilience. This is the emotional anchor. While the world faced crisis after crisis, economic collapse, war, shortages, the Amish blueprint carried families through. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't dependent on modern technology. It was discipline, simplicity, and faith in the soil. And here's the tension. In 2026, most of us face rising grocery bills and fragile supply chains, just as those families did nearly a century ago. The question becomes, if their blueprint worked then, through depression and war, could it still work now?
Walk with me into an Amish garden at dawn. The mist still clings to the grass, and the first light of morning stretches across rows so carefully arranged they look like a living blueprint. Nothing here is random. The layout itself is a quiet masterpiece. Tall corn and pole beans rise at the northern edge, their height positioned so they never cast shadows on the shorter crops. Root vegetables, carrots, beets, onions, claim the center rows, where the soil is deepest and most forgiving. Leafy greens tuck themselves between taller plants, shaded just enough to thrive. Squash sprawls along the borders, its broad leaves acting like natural mulch, suppressing weeds before they can take hold. The soil strategy is equally deliberate. Amish families treat the earth as sacred, feeding it year after year with compost made from kitchen scraps, manure, and autumn leaves. You can smell the richness in the soil, dark and crumbly, alive with unseen organisms. They rotate crops season by season, never exhausting one patch, always giving the land time to recover. It's a rhythm learned not from textbooks, but from generations of observation, passed down like a hymn. Crop selection is practical, not ornamental. Beans, potatoes, cabbage, and carrots dominate the rows, staples that fill stomachs and store well through winter. Tomatoes are prized for canning, cucumbers for pickling, peas for drying. Each plant has a purpose, each harvest a plan. There are no exotic novelties here, no fragile crops chosen for show. The Amish garden is about survival, abundance, and continuity. Pest control is handled with the same quiet ingenuity. Marigolds and nasturtiums line the borders, their scents deterring insects. Chickens patrol the edges, scratching for grubs and fertilizing the soil as they go. Children are taught to hand-pick beetles from leaves, dropping them into jars of kerosene. Ashes from the wood stove are sprinkled between rows to discourage slugs. It's a system that relies not on chemicals, but on vigilance, patience, and balance with nature. Seasonal timing is the final key. Seeds are pressed into the soil as soon as frost lifts. Cold frames extend the growing season, and succession planting keeps the garden alive all summer. Radishes follow lettuce, beans follow peas, and by autumn, root cellars brim with potatoes, while shelves glow with jars of preserved food. Winter is not feared, it is prepared for. The beauty of this system is its simplicity. Every decision, layout, soil, crops, pests, timing, is part of a larger design. It is not flashy, not modern, but it works. It worked in the 1930s, it worked in 1944, and it still works in 2026. Standing in that garden, you realize the blueprint is not just about food, it is about independence, it is about resilience, and it is about carrying wisdom from the past into the uncertainty of the future. So what does this mean for you today? Look around. Grocery prices climb higher each month, and the quality of store-bought food often leaves us questioning what we're really eating. Supply chains stretch across continents, vulnerable to every disruption, leaving families dependent on forces far beyond their control. Now imagine stepping into your own backyard, rows of food you planted, harvested, and trusted. No inflated bills, no mystery chemicals, just independence. The same Amish blueprint that carried families through hardship can carry you now, turning even a small patch of soil into resilience, security, and freedom. Phase 1 begins in late winter. The ground is still cold, but Amish families prepare with quiet anticipation. Compost is turned into soil, layouts are sketched on scrap paper, and tools are sharpened. Preparation feels like promise. The garden is waiting beneath the frost. Then comes planting. Seeds are pressed into rows with deliberate care. Children drop beans into furrows. Mothers cover them with soil. Fathers guide horse-drawn plows. Each crop is timed, each row intentional. Planting is hope made visible. Protection follows. Gardens are guarded not with chemicals, but with vigilance. Marigolds stand as sentinels, chickens patrol for grubs, and children hand-pick beetles from leaves. The garden becomes a living fortress, defended by tradition and patience. Harvest arrives with abundance. Baskets brim with beans, tomatoes glow red on the vine, squash sprawls across the soil. Families gather together, laughter mixing with the rustle of leaves. Harvest is reward, proof of discipline and design. Finally, storage carries summer's labor into winter survival. Potatoes fill root cellars, jars of tomatoes line shelves, beans dry in bundles. Winter is not feared, it is prepared for. Each phase flows into the next, a rhythm as old as the soil itself. Modern gardeners often scatter seeds without a plan, wasting sunlight and space. They lean heavily on store-bought fertilizers and sprays, forgetting that compost and rotation once kept soil fertile naturally. And too often, they choose novelty plants that look impressive but fail to feed a family. The Amish approach is different. Disciplined layouts, practical staples, and soil treated like treasure. Their method isn't about hobby gardening, it's about survival and abundance. In comparing the two, the historical blueprint stands out as smarter, steadier, and far more resilient than the shortcuts of modern convenience.
Close your eyes and picture it. You step into your backyard on a summer morning. Tomatoes ripen on the vine. Beans dangle in clusters. Squash sprawls across the soil. You bend down, pull a carrot from the earth, and feel independence resting in your hand. No checkout lines, no inflated bills, just food you grew yourself. Your pantry shelves are lined with jars, your meals secured for tomorrow. Confidence fills your home, peace settles in your heart. This is not just gardening, this is ownership, resilience, and the quiet power of feeding your family with your own hands. History shows us that ordinary families once fed themselves through discipline and design. The Amish blueprint carried them through depression, war, and scarcity, and it still works in 2026. Today, as prices rise and supply chains falter, the lesson is clear. Independence begins in the soil. The future belongs to those who reclaim self-reliance, who see their backyard not as decoration, but as survival. The wisdom of the past is waiting, ready to guide tomorrow. Strength lies in reclaiming what was once common sense. If you believe self-reliance still matters, subscribe and begin your journey toward true independence.